So I was walking, and I fell in a hole. My parents were waiting and waiting for me, and I was screaming out to them, and then my dad finally heard me. He came and found me. He got me out of the hole and took me directly to the hospital. And at the hospital, they said they can't do anything for me, so they brought me back home, and I was very sick, had a high fever, and that's what caused me to become deaf. And so my parents were very, just didn't know what to do. They were really struggling with what to do with me now that I'm deaf. My parents were asking around, looking for a place where they could teach me, and finally they found the Institute Montfort for the deaf. So, I was little, I didn't know anything. They brought me there, and I found there was all these deaf people. It's a very big school in Port-au-Prince. So I went into this school and went up to class up to 9th grade there. And then from there, I went into the sewing class, learned how to sew. And when I was done, then in 2006, I got my certification. And I went back home to Corfu, where my family lives. I was really bored, didn't have anything to do. I was out meeting my friends and talking to some deaf friends, and I told them I need a job, if they could help me find a job. So we went over to the factory by the airport, and there I found a job. So I worked there at that sewing factory. In 2007, I got tired of working there and everything, and I was thinking of my future. I didn't want to stay there, so I went back to my home in Corfu, and my dad said, well, what about your job? And I said, sorry, I quit my job. So anyway, I was talking to more deaf people, going around meeting deaf people and talking to them, and I was pretty bored, didn't have much to do these days. And so then I went out looking to talk to some more deaf people, and right then we were on the top of a big building, and right then the big earthquake happened, and everything was shaking and falling and down, so we hurried up and got out of there, and we were looking all around us. We couldn't figure out what happened. We saw blood and people, and so we went running. I went running home to my house, and my whole house had collapsed. Luckily, my parents and my brothers and sisters were all alive. Everyone was screaming, "Forgive us, Jesus! Forgive us, Jesus!" Everyone was so worried and didn't know what to say. So then we saw just limbs and blood and people and bodies, and we felt so bad for them. It was awful. And we all had to stay huddled in our one little place to try to stay protected. My parents wanted to really take care of it. So eventually the French army came over, because the people from Dominican Republic weren't able to get over to help us. And so the army from France came over and came over to Haiti, started bringing people help medical treatments and all kinds of other stuff. And then Americans came and started giving out rice and other things. And, they'd make announcements, people could hear, and they'd get in line, people would get in line, and they would give out the food. But when they'd see a deaf person in line, the hearing people would shove the deaf people out of line, and I'm like, no, I need food for my family. And they said, sorry, you can't get in line, you can't get food, and they wouldn't let us deaf people get food. When I got home, my parents were all excited. They knew I'd been in line, and they said, where's the food? And I told them, sorry, they wouldn't let us get food. So luckily some friends shared some food with us. So I was pretty bummed out, just hanging out, a lot of suffering and stuff. Then I met a guy named Whittler and talked to him about putting together a camp for all the deaf people to come together. So we started making plans, and then we got together in Port-au-Prince and got all these people together, started getting more deaf people together, and the group started to grow. Then Mackinson, Whittler, Jimmy, and me, we all started having conversations and talking about with the group called Friends of Deaf Haiti from Gallaudet in the United States, and we started talking about how we can make a camp for all the deaf people. So we did. Then eventually the Red Cross built wooden shelters for us, temporary wooden shelters, and they started helping us to get bathrooms and other things. And I didn't know this guy named Kyle. I saw this white guy walking around. I didn't know who he was. After a couple of days, I finally got used to him being around, and I met him and started to talk with him. And we told him, we need houses, and he said, look, we've got a place for houses where we can build you guys houses. So we got a van, and we all got in, and he brought us here to Leveque, through a mission of hope, and brought us here and showed us all the houses. Said, if you guys want to move here, we can build you houses. So we went back to Port-au-Prince, made a list of all the people who wanted to be part of the house, list of all the leaders, member leader names and everyone. Then we brought the list to Kyle, and Mackinson did a lot of so he sent that on, and we prayed, and we were hoping we would get a house. And then on February 7th, we had a big celebration at Mission of Hope, and they gave out certificates for everyone who was going to get their house. And so we all got to come and get our houses, and it was very exciting. And since then, every month they build 20 houses, and the reason is because they build 20 houses. 10 are for deaf and 10 are for hearing. That way it's fair, and every other block is deaf, hearing, deaf, hearing. So we have one row of deaf houses and one row of hearing houses, and so on. And so then we realized, here there's no electricity, so at nighttime it's dark, and as leaders, we're very worried about how do we communicate, what if something happens, what do we do? So we ended up getting solar lighting, and as you can see throughout the community, you can see one right there on the right, there's solar lighting now put throughout all over the community. So at nighttime the community's lit up a little bit. And then we needed clean water, and so we got a water filtration system. It was moved over from one of the camps, and so we were really happy to have that water filtration system here. Now the deaf are starting businesses, beats, and other items, and then Catherine started coming, and she started teaching the Bible, and we started learning about the Bible from her, and she taught us a whole bunch. We were very excited to learn about the Bible, and she said, you can be a pastor if you feel called to be a pastor. And so, okay, what do I do? What do I need? Need to help deaf people. And so whenever deaf people have problems or whatever, Jock Wilson joined our team of pastors in training, and so he helps. And then we've got another one, so now we're stronger. There's 3 of us together who are working and learning the Bible so we can reach out to all of the community and pray for them and help them. Another story, one time what happened, I was just at my house hanging out, and I was working and just doing my thing, and the deaf people, when they have problems, they know they'll come to me or to Jacques Wilson or Benoit as kind of pastors in training, and we teach and we help lead the other people because they don't know about Jesus or the Bible, and so we will do that teaching. One day I was at home, my wife over here, she's sitting right here, she was doing something, and a bunch of people came over and called me and said, William, we need you. And Berlin, her daughter, heard the people coming and looked out at the fence, and they all told us, hey, we need you. And so I quickly got, dressed and went out, and they led me all the way over to one of the blocks down the way, and I couldn't figure out what's going on. There's a big crowd of people, and they were breaking cement on the toilet. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? Let me see. And it's pitch dark down there, so I couldn't see. I couldn't hear anything. The deaf people, or the hearing people could hear what was going on, so I couldn't. So I had an idea. I got one of our solar lanterns, and I put a string on it, and I lowered it down into the toilet, the pit latrine, and there I could see a baby. The baby was bloated from the fumes, but the baby was alive and crying. And so that's when we realized, oh my gosh, there's a baby down there. I guess the hearing people could hear the baby crying. So we decided to get another piece of string with a slip knot on it, and we lowered it down. We prayed for God's help, and we were able to get that around the baby's ankle and bring the baby up upside down from his foot. And we brought the baby up as quick as we could, safe as we could, and then right away, we brought the baby up, and I wanted to help take care of the baby, but right away the women took the baby from me, and she's a midwife, so she knows what she's doing. She had to cut the umbilical cord and take care of the baby, clean the baby all up, and I just watched the whole scene as they continued to clean the baby, wash the baby, all the stuff that was on the baby, and they used lots of water to clean the baby. And then the baby was cold, so they got some coals, and they roasted the baby. No, they put the baby just way up high over the coals to warm up the baby, and then they said, who should get the baby? And everyone was pointing, William should. So finally, when they were done, they gave me the baby, and they told me, you need to go to the police, you need to go to the courts, you need to get paperwork done. So Jacques Wilson went with me, and he was telling I decided to name the baby Wilson after Jacques Wilson. So then we got on a motorcycle, tap, and we rode, and as we were riding, I had this huge crowd of people following me. Everybody was so happy, and I got to ride right here to my house, and there at the house, I was like hurrying, trying to get ready to take the baby down and see what we can do. And I had no money, so I had to go borrow from Mackinson, 100 Haitian. And then I hurried down and went to the police station first, told them what happened, explained the whole story to them, then went over to the judge or the court and explained to them what had happened, realized, oh yeah, we better do something. So we decided to go over to Mission of Hope. We went over there, clinic there, brought the baby in, and so they checked the baby out, and they said we can't, or what is the baby here for? There's nothing wrong with the baby. So I was like, okay, well at least we know the baby's fine. I went over to the church there, and there was Pastor Kennel. And so we had them contact Pastor Kennel and waited for him to come down. We just sat in the church for like a couple hours. We sat there waiting and waiting for him. Didn't know why it took so long. Finally, we found his wife Rachel, and she was just so in love with this beautiful, sweet little baby. She wanted to hold the baby, and we explained to her the whole story of what happened. And we said we want to keep the baby with us in Leveque. She said that's fine. She respected that decision. So she gave us some items for the baby and to help us get started. And when we came back, Pastor Kendall drove me back. When we came back, we couldn't believe there's a huge mob of people still at my house waiting and cheering when I got home. And so Pastor Kendall came in the home with us and prayed over the baby. And then he left, and he was so happy. Everyone was happy. And so I showed the baby to everybody, and everyone was so excited to see. And then they finally all dispersed. And then my mother, I didn't even know this, but my mother and brother were contacted, and they showed up. I was like, whoa, who told you guys? Someone from the community had called them, and they showed up, so they said, we want to help you, we want to help. And so my mom took over real quick and started helping. The baby was just tiny, just little baby, and so cute. So we were helping the baby, and I had no idea why they came over or whatever, but then the UN soldiers came over to see what was going on. They had heard what happened, and so they were like, so you saved this baby, you got this baby, and the police were there, and I told them I'm going to adopt the baby, and we're going to go somewhere to do that. And they said, oh, okay. So then later some Haitian officers came over, and so I some Haitian people came over, they wanted the baby, and I told them to get away, and people supported me, so that turned out okay. But we went to a hospital in Cabaret, and because the baby started getting sick, so they had to do an IV for the baby. And they told me the baby had no blood. Okay, this is the problem with the interpreters in hospital. And so for 2-3 days we were searching for blood. They said the baby had no blood in him. Finally they found blood and gave the baby blood. Finally the baby, after the IV, started to come around and get healthier. And when it took several days, once the baby was healthy, we came back here to Leveque with the baby and took care of the baby. And everybody come over to see the baby. Deaf people, hearing people, different people came over to see the baby. I was very protective of the baby. I didn't want just everyone. But when Catherine came over, she wanted to hold the baby, and she took that baby, and she said, I'm the mama now, I'm taking this baby. She took care of the baby all day long one day, and so, and then Catherine emailed Margaret and said, wait, Margaret wants to see the baby, but unfortunately my mom had to take the baby back to Carpoo with her. I'm so sorry, Margaret, to disappoint you. Anyway, then, but after a while, we'll bring the baby back here, or you'll go to Carpoo and you'll be able to see him. So anyway, that's my story.
Wait, what happened in February?